Hello and welcome to the Inside Killeen podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Limity, and today we're going to be discussing the changing environment in homeless services in the city of Killeen and elsewhere. Joining me today is Suzanne Armour, Executive Director of Families in Crisis, which is the umbrella organization that oversees the Friends in Crisis homeless shelter in North Killeen. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thanks.
All right, I'm also got with me Daelan Cheh, an intern reporter at KDHU who has written several articles about homeless issues recently. How you doing?
Doing good.
All right. Suzanne, can you explain a little bit about what Families in Crisis does?
Sure. Well, we're a nonprofit 501c3 corporation. Our mission is to house, support, and empower people experiencing family violence, sexual violence, and homelessness. So we have several housing programs. We have 2 domestic violence shelters. We have the homeless shelter, Friends in Crisis. And we also are the area's rape crisis center, and we have a housing program for veterans.
Okay. And when we talk about homeless people, what are we referring to? Who are we referring to? What kinds of people are they?
Well, you can categorize a couple of different ways. One group is transient. Those are people who it's just a one-time episode of homelessness where they've fallen on hard times and they just need an opportunity to get back on their feet. There's another group that are often referred to as episodic, which is when they might cycle in and out of homelessness. And then you have the chronically homeless who have been homeless for several years.
Mm-hmm. Is there a way of telling what is most prominent in the city?
Yeah. Pretty much what we see are the transient population, whereas it's just someone who needs a little time to get back on their feet. The chronically homeless make up about 10% of the folks we see here.
I see. I was researching this a little bit, and I was looking at some of the HUD articles that have been done about different approaches to how homelessness is treated across the country. And housing first has been something that has always kind of been seen, well, not always, but at least up until I think the 2000s. Am I correct about that?
Yes.
Up until the 2000s, it's been seen as the most effective way of addressing homelessness. Can you explain what the difference is between housing first and other approaches, and why specifically the federal Housing and Urban Development, Department of Housing and Urban Development kind of approaches treating this issue?
Sure. Well, when homelessness started to become a significant issue in this country back in the 80s, we primarily handled it through a treatment first, or what's also referred to as staircasing, where you have people where people graduate almost, if you want to think about it that way, from one level to another, whether it's from shelter to transitional housing and then ultimately to housing stability. And then around 1992, Pathways to Home in New York City developed a program that employed the housing first approach, wherein you house the person first, give them the breathing room to work on the issues that they might be facing, and at that time you did self-sufficiency classes and had to meet with a case manager once a month. Mm-hmm. So now we've taken that a step further, and I think it was George W. Bush who implemented or who brought housing first to the forefront. And what we do with that is we're looking at, if you're worried about where you're going to sleep at night, keeping a roof over your head, you don't have time to work on any other issues. That housing component is going to impede every time, and it's going to take precedence in your concerns. And so typically you might not get a whole lot done if you're just trying to survive. And people fail out of treatment programs, and if the program is contingent, if getting housing is contingent on recovery, anybody who's been through a substance abuse issue knows that a lot of times we fall down a few times before we actually succeed. So this was a way to get people housed, and a lot of studies, there's been 1 million studies done on homeless treatment methods, and a lot of them indicated that with Housing First, we were seeing people stay stably housed longer, and we were seeing them not return to homelessness. It's about a success rate of about 80%, typically.
And you mentioned George W. Bush. Well, during his time in office, homelessness reduced by 30% from 2005 to 2007 using the Housing First program. And more or less since then, like we mentioned, Housing First has sort of been the dominating federal policy when it comes to treating homelessness. And now, of course, recently that has changed. And I know that it's been talked about quite a lot, like in certain circles, but like on July 24th, an executive order was issued by the Trump administration, which basically kind of changed the focus from Housing First to, correct me if this is the wrong terminology, but treatment first?
That's how, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, why do you think that there was a sudden change in this approach?
Well, I think what part of the executive order talks about rates of substance abuse, rates of mental health problems, and they really don't align with what's been researched and what we've seen. Only about 30% of the people we serve, and what seems to be consistent across the nation, is only about 30% of the of homeless folks have a substance abuse problem. Only about 30% have a mental health issue, and 50% of the times those two things are co-occurring. So it's really a small portion, but who's the most visible when we're talking about homeless people? It's someone who's acting up, right? Or someone, so the focus seems to stay on the chronically homeless, when really that's a very small portion. And so it does make you question that approach and why they, how can I say this?
Maybe why they're changing something so drastically
Yes.
that has been used for a very long time.
Very long time, has been proven successful. All HUD programs that provide housing assistance operate under a Housing First principle. So it's a tremendous departure from what we've been used to seeing, and a lot of work that's been done over the years.
Yeah, it sounds like an extremely drastic change. So, Daelan, you wrote some very, very good articles recently for the KDH News about the homeless issue. I know that you visited, I'm not sure if you call it a camp or not, but you were with the KPD's homeless outreach team, and you went with them on, I guess they were just checking up on them to make sure they were okay, seeing if they wanted to get housing or something. Can you explain a little bit about that and how maybe experience that impacted you or not?
During my time with HOT that day, I went out to go visit some of the homeless camps that were around, I want to say, it was near downtown. I can't name the street off the top of my head, but some of the locations were near Dollar Tree. We had Delicious and a couple other locations. But during that point in time, HOT had knew some of the residents. And the whole thing about it was they wanted to keep the sites clean, because one thing that they say best is there's nothing wrong with being homeless. It's not a crime. But the issue around those camps were the trash that would be piling up. So what they would do is they'll talk to them and say, if you can clean this up around this exact amount of time, nothing will happen. But the problem is, if that trash stays there for a certain period amount of time, then there has to be the law enforced. Now they have to be moved out the place, and now they also have to clean up. So it has its pros, but then there's also its cons, because I've had the chance to talk to some homeless people. The thing about them being moved is when they get moved, there's not many places for them to go. You have some homeless people who sleep on sidewalks. So you will sleep under underpasses, sometimes trying to sleep near a small business that hasn't been fully opened up yet. It's still in a construction process. The problem with that, in my opinion, is if you get moved around so many places and this place is not good, this place is not good, this place is not good, then where can you go? Because I've had conversations with Miss Suzanne, and Friends in Crisis is always packed up every day. Every day, every night, and they're open 24/7, always operating. And correct me if I'm wrong, Miss Suzanne, it's 75 beds, correct?
78 beds.
78. That's 78 beds, but we have hundreds of homeless people. So how many people can you hold for so long? And with the number increasingly going up in my studies, there's not, I want to say this right. The people of Killeen are helping out the homeless population, but the demand is higher than the resources that is out here in Killeen.
But to Suzanne's point, she was saying that the most visible people that are homeless make up about 30%. What do you think, and I guess this can be addressed to both of you, what do you think can be done to address the homeless people that are not so easily seen on the streets of Killeen or elsewhere?
Can you elaborate on that?
Well, for instance, you might have like someone who sleeps on a couch here and there, and kind of like he might not be on the street like suffering from obvious emotional distress, but he is out there. I mean, how do we take care of that person's needs when, you know, there's more of a clamor for the obvious homeless person that is, for lack of a better phrase, acting out, or like seen to be obviously mentally ill, or seen to be suffering from drug addiction?
Ms. Armour?
I think the solution is housing. That being said, it's expensive to house people. It's also expensive to shelter them and deal with the consequences of what happens to folks when they're homeless. The added cost to the community in healthcare and in lack of employment. When you have citizens that aren't able to shower every day to get a job and whatnot, it impacts the entire community when one of us falls down. And when one falls down, we all fall down in a way. So I think the solution is housing opportunities. I also think it's education through, like what you're doing right now, putting the word out about what services are available, talking about the issues that impact our community, having businesses and groups pay attention to this issue and talk about it and know resources. When we all know, we can connect people to those resources.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I guess one of the things I was wondering was, there's been a change in the vernacular that a lot of people use to refer to homeless people. Some people use the term unhoused. If you don't mind, could you just tell me like what your preference is, and if it really makes any difference to call them either unhoused or homeless? And yeah.
I personally prefer unhoused, simply because it's less of a label. It's a moment in your life rather than being homeless. But a lot of times it's, quite frankly, clunky to say, and we've been using the term homeless for years and years, and you know, you can look at it as semantics as well, but I definitely prefer unhoused.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the go-to word unhoused, because talking to Sergeant Calmore and also Miss Armour as well, and just seeing some of the situations, you can be unhoused because it can't be chronic. You just
Right.
happen to fall on hard times. It could be you just couldn't pay your rent no more. You got laid off. It could just be something that wasn't in your control.
Right.
So you're just unhoused in that moment.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. However, I think I use the word homelessness simply just because that's what the vast majority of people use, and um, I think it makes it easier to communicate.
Yes.
But
That's fair. I've used
Yeah.
that word many times until I started doing the homeless story and talking talking to Sergeant Moore and Miss Suzanne Armour. They told me what the preferred term is.
yeah, no, that's fair. I think it's always worth mentioning because words do have meaning. So, Daelan, anything else that you took away from doing these stories? Did you meet any interesting people when you were in the course of your reporting?
I did have a chance one night when that impact was handing out food to the homeless community on 8th and 10th Street. I had a chance to meet a group called the Tree People. And talking to them, they all had different stories. You had some who were chronic, some who were veterans, and some who just came from a broken family. So hearing their stories, hearing how they've had to come up in an unhoused situation and trying to make it out. I know there was one story that he had an apartment and he would let them stay, and then he couldn't make the payments no more and they all had to get evicted.
Mm-hmm.
But during that time frame of them having that apartment, they were all able to have a shower. They were able to go to clothing pantries that were available in downtown Killeen, and they were all trying to get jobs. So talking to them, you can see everybody, the unhoused community, they stick together. Once they all have that camaraderie, they stick together and try to get themselves out that situation. But just how we've mentioned before, it takes one bad thing and you're back on the streets, for lack of better terms.
Yeah, and one thing I've always kept in mind is that it could happen to me too. It could happen to any of us. We just don't know. So I think it's important to kind of treat, especially in the course of reporting or anything, to treat that with like some humility, because you know you might be reporting about someone, but you're also kind of like, in a way, kind of reporting on yourself. You're reflecting society back on itself. So I think that's really good to keep in mind.
And another thing about it is Killeen, everybody cares. It's just a different approach to it. Because there's some cases, yes, you can see someone on the side, you can give them a bottle of water, but will you giving them a bottle of water saying that have the same impact as you trying to help them get a job, or say, hey, I know some resources right down here, they can get you set up. I know a connection here, because I could say it a million times, there's so many resources out there, and yes, the demand is high, but like with Miss Suzanne Armour, they're there for a reason. They want to help people with their situation. They want to help them get out of there, and they're not just trying to give them something that'll last them probably a week, 2 weeks, even a month. They're trying to have something that'll last them forever. They want them to transition out of that situation and stay there. They want them to have permanent housing.
Yeah, and then there's the other point of view, which is a little bit more callous, but I guess in some cases people perceive it as being blunt or honest, where they just say, we don't want to help, we don't want to spend money to put towards things like for instance, the new homeless shelter, which has been delayed because of funding reasons at the city of Killeen, but nonetheless, I think will likely happen at some point. But Suzanne, what do you think is going to happen with the new homeless shelter? Do you think that they're going to eventually put funds to it and kind of make it happen?
I hope so. I don't have any knowledge of it at this point, but it's something we definitely need. I see at Friends in Crisis homeless shelter, we have 78 beds, and we're putting out cots every night because the demand is just so great, and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, and definitely the city of Killeen realizes that because they've helped out a number of times when there's been issues with some grant funding and
Yes.
stuff like that. So I think that there is an awareness and an appreciation that this is a big need for the city of Killeen.
Oh, absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
that was a blessing to get that assistance. It enabled us to keep our doors open that much longer and serve that many more people.
Yeah, I mean, incidentally, I remember this was a while ago, but like Councilman Segar said at a meeting, that's Councilman Jose Segar, said at a meeting that when the shelter was closed down briefly, there were just people like putting up camps and stuff, like, and that's not a sustainable situation either. So,
No.
I mean, so
I think the way people view it might be wrong. Because once again, they're too focused on the chronic situation. But hopefully, if anyone's been reading my articles, you'll see there's so much more to it. If you're informed on what's really going on, yes, there are people who do get assistance, but they find themselves back on the streets due to their vices. But what about those who are actually trying to make a difference? They're trying to change their life up. I think that's what should also be looked at as well. Let's not look at that percentage that's back and forth, because eventually it will turn around, but it takes time. It takes time, especially if they've been in that situation for years.
yeah.
They've been there for years, and now they've gotten comfortable in that situation. And maybe that first time they did get housing, they couldn't handle all the responsibilities and the accountability they had to put in for themselves, because those 2 months is nothing compared to 6 years. So it's just a way you have to look at it.
Well, I think, well, I don't want to speak for Councilman Segar, but I think he was just trying to illustrate the issue of what would happen if there was no homeless shelter. Because there were people on the council, Councilman Ramon Alvarez comes to mind, who mentioned that maybe they didn't want to give so much money to the homeless shelter. And I think there's just a general, but I do think more likely there is just a general recognition that having such a place is very, very important to the city.
And I think I could answer that question a little bit. If there was no homeless shelters, we'll have more than what we're seeing right now. We have more camps, more people sleeping in car washes, more people. There's a whole lot of what's happening could be tripled in a snap.
Easily.
Real
More than
easily.
tripled, yeah.
And if there's not enough resources, we could have a situation like what's going on in California. You have people 5-10 blocks down going to one shelter.
Speaking of SNAP, another program that is facing, well, not really facing, it has been cut drastically, which puts pressure on the food banks, but the food banks are also having issues with funding that they would normally get from places like the USDA and stuff like that. So, I mean, overall, there seems to be a gigantic squeeze going on of people that would be vulnerable to being homeless. So, I don't know how you would go about dealing with that. I don't know if there really is any answers. I mean, how are you guys looking at like some of these changes and trying to adjust to them?
Well, we still have our mission. We're always going to have that mission. And so we have to do the best we can with the resources that we have available. And it could at some point mean cutting services if necessary. We're not there yet, and we don't anticipate being there. But poverty intersects with all the issues that we deal with. And when you reduce assistance, when wages don't increase, when housing is unaffordable, it's going to continue.
There's also one other thing I wanted to ask about, and it has to do with the Killeen Housing Authority. Obviously, if people have followed the news over the last year or so, KHA has had a lot of issues. One of their executive directors was brought up allegedly for embezzlement, and there was a huge staff exodus, and I'm just wondering, because it's Killeen centric, the housing authority, and because it addresses housing issues with HUD and the like. I mean, what kind of impact does not having KHA as a functional housing authority impact the city? What do you think?
Well, I know the COG has picked up some of that, from what I understand.
That's true.
So that's
COG
filling
has.
that gap to an extent. I would say we probably don't know yet. I'm not terribly familiar with the situation. We did not have clients in the housing authority, so I'm just not sure.
Yeah, that's fair. I just wanted to ask because it struck me recently that some people are thinking maybe of trying to go back and change the Clean Housing Authority to be something that more positive to the community, because right now they're not really doing too much of anything. But in any case, Daelan, did you have anything that you are working on currently that has to do with the homeless situation? Or do you want to maybe talk about something that you covered recently that you didn't get a chance to talk about?
So right now, the next story I'm working on is the statistics, and I was able to work with Ms. Suzanne Armour getting some of those numbers. This was coming from Point in Time, and these are from last year. I'm still uncertain when the new numbers will come out, but I'm still on the lookout for 2025s. I think you said I was going to be coming.
I don't know why it's not on the Texas Homeless Network's website yet, but we can probably find those numbers.
But I definitely want to run those numbers and let the public see that, so they can see, they have a chance to see last year, and then when this year's comes out, they're going to see the big difference, hopefully.
Yeah, seems reasonable to me. Suzanne, do you have any final thoughts or any kind of stuff, anything that you're currently looking forward to or working on?
We've talked about this briefly before, that we are going to be administering tenant-based rental assistance.
That's right.
That is part of a federal block grant program through HUD, and we'll be working in partnership with the city of Killeen to do that. It provides up to 2 years rental assistance to households facing homelessness. You start off on a year, and you can possibly recertify after that. It's for very low and low-income families, and we hope we're going to help at least 15 households with that.
Sounds great. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. Please check out Daelan's articles about this issue, all from last week and the upcoming one that has some interesting statistics that we'll be sharing. This has been the Inside Killeen podcast with KDH News. Hamida Bachway is the producer. I'm Kevin Limby, and I will see you next time.